The aim of this talk is to provide you with a real example of the three co's framework being used with online only co creation. This example comes from the United Kingdom and is based on developing applicable tools for people who are pregnant and professionals who support them. The talk is based on this published research project to develop maternity tools for people living with conditions called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and hypermobility spectrum disorders, or HEDS and HSD for short, as I'll refer to them for the rest of this presentation. These conditions are connective tissue disorders that can affect systems all over the body, and because of this, symptoms can include joints moving out of place, pain, fatigue, pelvic floor issues, dizziness when standing, digestive issues, and more. Although HEDS and HSD were previously understood to be rare, more recent evidence suggests that these conditions may be more common. And this has meant that health professionals often do not learn about them sufficiently in their education, leaving the conditions underdiagnosed and misunderstood. Because they are multi-system disorders affecting the whole body, and twice as many women are affected than men, they may also be affecting as many as 1 in 20 pregnancies. We have reviewed the literature and carried out interviews and surveys to develop recommendations for people who are pregnant with these conditions and professionals who support them. However, there remained a need to try and create more practical tools to be applied in the field. We partnered with 5 organisations, 3 charities for people with HEDS and HSD, and one was the Royal College for Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and the last one was the Make Births Better network. We also did a public poll, which was closed after it received a massive 4,000 votes. The top voted tools to help staff support people with childbearing with HEDS and HSD included an online learning module, guidelines, leaflets, a decision-making resource, or an infographic and video. The results were used to inform the first co-creation workshop. After this, we carried out an online co-creation project using the 3 Co's framework. We hosted the first online workshop for the co-define and co-design stages, produced prototypes of the tools, and then held an online co-refine workshop. Both workshops were run through a standard chat software plus the Big Blue Button software that allowed co-creators to draw and write on blank space and animate pictures, as well as typing in the chat box and speaking their thoughts. Co-creators were viewed as co-researchers and included people with experience of HEDS and HSD and or childbearing, health professionals who support childbearing people, third sector representatives, researchers, and designers. We provided joining instructors ahead of the webinars and opened the chat ahead of the workshop start to provide people with space to check they could join the link okay and ask any technical questions. 14 co-creators joined the workshop, which started with an icebreaker to introduce who everyone was and why they wanted to be involved, and also get them used to the software, as you can see in this left-hand picture. We had a short presentation to provide the aims of the co-creation project and feedback the results of the public poll. This then led to a series of questions posed on the screen for people to discuss, draw and write their thoughts. These focused on what problems needed to be solved, who the tools would be for, and what messages we wanted to get across in the co-defined stage. This led to the prioritisation of 3 key needs for the co-creation to focus: a need to educate professionals supporting perinatal care with HEDS and HSD, a need to support shared decision-making between childbearing people with HEDS and HSD and professionals, and a need to raise awareness more generally in the public about HEDS and HSD and childbearing. Although the need for guidelines had also existed in the public poll, it was acknowledged that published care considerations already existed, so it was more important to raise awareness and educate people about their existence and main messages. And a key challenge was identified as wanting to raise the profile by emphasising the importance that professionals understand HEDS and HSD and childbearing, but also didn't want to put people off of childbearing with these conditions. And as it's quite a complex condition, there was a challenge of explaining it all in a simple, publicly accessible way. So the discussion continued to the co-design stage into what maternity tools could be created in response to the needs identified and prioritised. 3 tools were decided following the discussion. So the first one was the educational tool, and this was voted highly in the public poll, we wanted an online learning module that could address the first identified need of helping professionals learn how to support childbearing with HEDS and HSD. This could be developed as an accredited and professional iLearn module through our networks of the Royal College of Midwives. A prototype short learning course was co-designed with learning objectives, information to be provided, key resources, and signposting. Then the second agreed output was to address the need for shared decision making. This was by developing a one-page, freely downloadable tool for perinatal records. A prototype was co-designed to include key information about HEDS and HSD, considerations that maternity professionals and people with the conditions may want to consider, and a section to write about aspects unique to that childbearing person and how support could be tailored for them. And we also wanted it to feature this picture that you can see within this annotated page or big blue button, where a co-creator wrote mothers and staff making decisions together, and then other co-creators drew ticks and heart shapes and yes with an exclamation mark around it. The third output that we agreed upon was to address the final need of raising public awareness by creating a freely accessible video about childbearing with the conditions. The idea was co-designed for a person with HEDS or HSD to speak about their experience, a midwife to talk about key care considerations, and then to show them making shared decisions together. And Ben Clark Design was commissioned to create the video as part of the team, including the animator, voiceover actress, and videographer that you can see the acknowledgements there on the right-hand side. The Co-Refine workshop was hosted online, inviting the same co-creators back and using the same software again. Prototypes of the 3 agreed tools were presented, with the educational course as an outline of content, the pregnancy notes as a draft page, and the video as a storyboard. Positive feedback was provided in this session, with co-creators providing annotations directly to the software as well as discussing their thoughts. And you can see here an example of the annotations from the first workshop being refined from mothers to parents to the final version to be more inclusive language. So here is the final tool for the pregnancy notes and the shared decision making that we co-created. This is freely accessible to the public to download and print off. It can be put in pregnancy notes along with other pregnancy records and plans. And you can even see that co-refined picture included on that top right there. It was also agreed that the tool would feature in the video, which is freely available to the public and hosted on the Coventry University YouTube channel. These pictures that you can see here, as well as some of the pictures used in some of my other slides, are taken from the infomercial, storyboard, and final video. The online professional development module is hosted officially by the Royal College of Midwives iLearn platform for its members. It was agreed that the pregnancy notes tool and infomercial would be included in this module, and as well as some of the pictures by Ben Clark Design in keeping with the same colour scheme and design elements of the video. After the co-creation, we asked people to provide feedback on their experience of being involved in the online co-creation experience, and here are some word clouds to represent that feedback. I won't linger on these slides too long, but you can just quickly see here that people have found the process productive, valuable, easy, and interesting. They found the online co-creation process to be conversational, meaningful, and with some really good ideas shared. They saw the potential disadvantages mainly in terms of logistics and technical and management aspects. Both said that they like both types of face-to-face and online delivery. Most preferred the online because you need to travel, it's easier to commit, flexibility, accessibility, and national inclusion. Others preferred face-to-face for the in-person interactivity. They specifically like being involved in the co-creation process right from the beginning, rather than if we had come up with an idea and asked them about it, because they viewed that more as tokenistic consultation. They found being involved in the co-creative process a much more meaningful, dynamic, and in-depth collaboration, and thought it was an effective way of doing things. They found the approach useful and interesting and felt proud to have been involved in this work. So you can see an element of feeling responsibility and it's theirs as well as ours. So to finish, I thought it would be useful to focus on an aspect in the discussion section of our publication, where we reflect on the barriers identified with patient and public involvement that need to be overcome when doing research in this paper with the reference at the bottom there. We highlight that through using this method, we have worked to overcome many of these identified barriers. So, for example, public awareness and communication were increased through our established networks and engagement hubs. Co creators were acknowledged where consent was provided. Consistency was increased through the use of the Three Co's framework, and the authorship team included those with lived experience of the conditions and of childbearing and parenthood, as well as being multidisciplinary across health psychology, midwifery, and design. The co creation not only included patients and the public, but also other key stakeholders that could provide barriers or facilitate the success of the outputs, including third sector organisations, healthcare professionals, academics, and designers. The online and creative nature of the co creation workshops helped provide a neutral environment where everyone's voices were considered equal and inclusive for those who could not attend in person due to disability, time, or travel constraints. The final versions of the three tools, as well as the publication for this project, are all hosted on the Heads Together website, so www.headstogether.com, as you can see listed on the top there, which is a research dissemination website. And the website and video includes acknowledgement of all of the co-creators who provided consent to be named. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.